righty. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the impact of AI specifically on the utility industry. Before we get started and before we introduce our panelists here, I'd like to very quickly just ask the audience a couple of questions, and feel free to throw out your responses. Anybody care to venture a guess on what the dollar value annually is on damage mitigation and prevention in the utility industry as a result of utility strikes and unplanned utility relocations? Any guesses? 50 billion. Close. About 30 billion is the estimate every year annually on our infrastructure projects. The second question then is, anybody have an idea of the hours that are spent in utility research, utility documentation gathering, utility records collection every year? And this is a range because nobody knows the real answer to it. Anybody care to venture a guess what that might be? 100 million. Maybe not quite that much. I'm playing hide the ball a little bit. The answer is tens of thousands of hours is spent on simply going and finding the records over and over and over again. Oftentimes the same records, different projects, same records over and over again. So with that in mind, the premise here is, can advanced technology, can technology like AI have an impact on the utility industry, not just in those two areas, in time and money, but also other areas, make things more productive, more efficient, more accurate, all of these things. And so that's the premise of our discussion today. And before I hand it over to do quick introduction of our panelists, from an abstract perspective, as companies and public agencies search to find effective ways to implement AI and other advanced technologies, we're going to look at the impact on how we can utilize this technology to improve the nation's infrastructure and the processes that are a part of delivering, designing, delivering, and then maintaining these infrastructure projects. In the utility industry, advancements in AI, and by the way, AI, there's lots of definitions around AI and what it can do, and there's a lot of fear in the industry about what it does. And afterwards, if you've got specific questions about how it can be controlled in a way that can make sense for the infrastructure, myself and Stephanie, my colleague here, are happy to answer any of those questions. But highly accurate utility databases and the production of the data using AI to get that data into utility databases that becomes usable for everybody are some of the things that AI can provide for all the stakeholders in the utility infrastructure market, including general contractors, civil engineers, locating firms, and of course the public and private utility owners. So AI's impact on the efficiency and risk mitigation related to improvements of the infrastructure across the nation is making its way, and you guys are well aware of this, into our processes that you guys are involved in every day. So with that, let me turn it over for introductions. Aaron, how about if I start with you?
Thank you. I'm Aaron McClellan. I'm the Construction Technology Manager at Granite Construction. Granite Construction is a diversified general contractor specializing in infrastructure construction and construction materials. We operate in the transportation, water, wastewater industry. Been around for 100 years last year, so it's a pretty good milestone. My job is to look at technology from a broad perspective and introduce technology and innovation in our company in a vast variety of methods and in the operations specifically. And one of the things that I think we're going to talk about today is pretty impactful, which is AI. So I'm happy to share that.
Thank you, Aaron. Wes, up next.
Hello, everybody. Wes Kaisershot. I'm VP of Engineering for ServWest LLC. We are a DBE firm, emerging small business based here in Denver, Colorado, with offices also in Texas. Our footprint of services is Texas and Colorado, but also all of the Western U.S. My role as VP is to work on the subsurface utility engineering, which is called SUE, and also the utility coordination parts of our company, and to help that grow using services and resources like 4M, and then being a strategic partner, which we'll share about in here a little bit. That's my role. I live in Austin, but I am licensed here. I went to Colorado School of Mines, got a civil engineering degree there. So Colorado's home, and also I'm licensed here in Colorado. So that's me.
Thank you, Wes. And Dennis, last but not least.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dennis Rose. I'm the COO of GIS Surveyors. We're a veteran-owned geospatial firm. We're focused primarily on the power utility industry and large-scale infrastructure projects, especially when it comes to fire mitigation and public safety. We have 4 verticals. We do underground utility locating to eliminate the strikes that have been discussed. Mainly at the design stage, because we find that a lot of impact to the project can be alleviated or mitigated if we can get into where the underground utilities are about as early as we can. That's where we've used 4M products to help us get ahead of that. And we also do traditional land surveying there, so coupled in with the locating, we can provide the highly accurate land survey required for the designs and construction layout. And then we also do LiDAR, which is a big part of what I'll talk about today with our AI advancements in LiDAR auto extraction. And then, of course, as our name suggests, we are a big-time GIS analytics team where we do a lot of asset management and programmatic oversight for the power utilities and reporting to the California Public Utility Commission. So through that kind of process, we integrate all these tools to really help people understand the where that is most important when it comes to their projects.
All righty. Thank you, Dennis. Why don't we jump right into the questions? Aaron, if it's okay, I'll start with you.
Absolutely.
So first question, what does the industry need to do to position ourselves to leverage the power of AI, and specifically with you and with Granite?
It's a loaded question. I think so. In order for us to really leverage the power of AI, we have to look at where data points are created, where they're manipulated, and where they go, right? So we have to understand that there has to be a certain standard of information that is gathered and presented and made accessible. So that way we can use the power of AI to make better decisions faster, create more value for us, our customers, right? So we have internal innovation that powers use AI to generate faster decisions internally, but at the end of the day, we're there to create value for our customers. So we have to leverage the power of the data and how structured the data is to generate better outcomes, to deliver better projects. And that's what we're focused on, is how can we use that power to get more information and make better decisions, put better plans together, put better execution plans together to deliver our projects in a more effective way.
Thank you, Aaron. Wes, a question on sort of along the same lines with a slightly different twist, which is how is AI, and maybe a quick definition of SUE for the audience might be helpful. And then the follow-up to that would be, how do you see AI having an impact specifically in the SUE discipline?
That's a good question too. I guess I'd like audience participation, and Joe, you started it off. A raise of hands if you've used SUE, subsurface utility engineering, on your project before. That's pretty good. That's about a third. So for those that haven't, SUE stands for subsurface utility engineering. The definition of SUE is that it is an ASCE, American Society Civil Engineer, approved method of locating utilities to quality levels of certainty, and it is an engineering discipline. It's an engineering assistance to the pre-construction phase of a project, also now starting to be used a lot in the construction side of the project. Damage prevention and SUE, the worlds were different for a while. Now they're coming together and realizing that they need to play in similar sandboxes to help with not only safety of the general public, but for good, profitable construction and minimizing delays. So a further definition of SUE and then how AI impacts it. SUE has 4 quality levels. Those that raised your hand are familiar. Quality level D as in David, C as in cat, B as in boy, A as in apple. So as you start with quality level D, you have the least certain, you have the least amount of certainty of where your utility is. It's often located there by records, internet research. It's something there that's there. Possibly artificial intelligence to maybe a lower degree has been there. And then like 4M, they have advanced utility, then you have a little bit more certainty. But level D is mapping that to a records or oral recollections, calling someone on the phone, what side of the road is that water line on, and a field visit. Those are all things that are in the D. In the C, you start getting into surveying of what you see above ground, and now you're starting to get anchor points. For all you surveyors are out there that appreciate the word anchor points, now you're starting to know where to connect those utility segments to with a professional in charge. At level B, you're starting to use some of the equipment. It's a pretty impressive booth out there in the hallway, the geospatial company out there. Those are all tools used to designate. Those are called geophysical methods of utility designating. That's when you get quality level B. Now you're really certain to a fraction of a foot where that utility is in the X and the Y. And then quality level A, you've actually located that utility with a test hole, and you've used vacuum excavation technology, sometimes hydrovac, but mostly it's air vacuum excavation to non-destructively excavate down to the top of the pipe. And now you know where that utility is exactly. AI is huge. If any of you follow the 4M social media or doing it now from your phone with any heads down, you might see some cool quotes. And one of them I have to say is for me, and that I've defined AI and what 4M Analytics brings to the SUE industry as utility records on steroids. And really that's amazing. When you saw that video demo about an hour back, and you literally draw a polygon and the utilities pop up or a heat map pops up, that's cutting edge things that we did not have 5 or 10 years ago. And that is impacting disruptively the whole civil engineering sector. So that might be kind of a long-winded approach. Hopefully there'll be some other questions where I can talk a little bit more, because it's a very exciting realm. But anyone that gets into the utility realm and tries to figure out all the utilities buried underground and how they tie together, obviously fell out of a crib when they were a baby. So if y'all could pray for me, I'm one of those kids that had a tough childhood.
Thank you, Wes. And by the way, thank you for the training session, teaching session on sort of the SUE industry as a whole. Dennis, so shifting gears just a little bit, but same sort of question. What are the various use cases for AI and or machine learning in vegetation management, specifically in the power industry or the utility industry? Because we know it's not simply the utilities, but everything else that may have an impact on decisions around vegetation management, of course.
Yeah, so we're based in California, and California has a major problem with wildfires. It's every year. They actually call it a fire season. There's working for all the 3 major power utility groups in California. We have different teams working with their veg management crews in various ways. One way is with the GIS analytics and the AI that we can incorporate for tree strike analysis. So, the various data sources that we have out there available, from airborne LiDAR to climate information, to actually field inspections, and even satellite data now that can analyze the moisture content in things like trees. Can identify dead and dying trees so we can go out and send crews out to these areas and have them mitigate the issue before it becomes an issue. So the AI can take all these various data sources that may take, a human, it would take a team of humans, various experts to be able to compile this. But by training, using machine learning to teach the AI what it needs to look for, it can help determine these the possibility of a dead or dying tree or that could fall into a line causing a fire a lot faster than the old ways. So, also on top of that, the AI is helping us with our LiDAR extraction. So they use LiDAR to fly the lines and determine, tree growth as it grows into the lines. Also some inspection of their equipment. With AI now, we can reduce a lot of the man hours required to extract features, to analyze spatial relationships between the trees and the overhead lines. So we can more quickly send out crews to mitigate issues before they become an issue. And this is helping the power utilities get in front of trees that are constantly growing. And we had a very rainy season this year in California, very rare. And it's important that they're out there flying those lines now, and that we process the data in an expedient manner so we can get out there before it becomes a significant problem and a public safety issue. So, the line strikes are very much important for the underground, but we like to think we're also got to keep in mind the stuff that's above ground as well. So the trees don't know where they're going to fall, but we try to figure it out before they do. So.
Thank you, Dennis. And by the way, the Colorado folks here can certainly relate to an excessive amount or a lot of water this year. For those folks who live here like myself, it's been a great year for water. So, Aaron, I'm going to come back to you. Where have you seen AI create the most value for your organization, for Granite Construction?
So we use AI in a couple different realms. Safety is one of the first things that kind of launched some AI efforts within Granite, which uses camera analytics and image detection to identify risks within a certain area. And so naturally, the next phase is as we start looking at our pursuit phase and our pre-construction, we want to get as much analytical data from imagery as we can. And so in comes 4M, right? And so we use 4M at a bid phase to identify where utilities are. We've used them on quite a few pursuits. We've identified tens of thousands of utility lines that weren't identified in the as-built and or provided drawings. So it's good for us to see that data before we make a plan to execute on a project. It also helps us collaborate, especially in our alternative procurement with our CMGC, CMAR, Progressive Design Build, as we start working hand in hand with the engineers, the owners, and everybody to really put a plan together. It helps us visualize what that execution plan looks like. And so that's one of the ways that we've really started to incorporate AI specifically into true functions of the business. We also look at a lot of robotic process automation on the back end to eliminate redundancies and data information transfer and things like that. But that gets back to my point about data points, and you have to have a very structured data strategy in order to do that. So the most effective ways that we've been able to leverage AI is in safety and utility infrastructure.
Got it. Thank you, Aaron. Wes, Aaron just described some of the values that he's seen coming from AI. Maybe you can describe maybe a more recent use case or success story that you guys have encountered at ServWest using AI technology.
Yes, I can. So at ServWest, again, we are a subsurface utility engineering, utility coordination, and surveying firm. So in order to do SUE, call it SUE, have it signed and sealed by a professional engineer like myself or someone else with our company, we do have to follow that ASCE 38 standard. They just had an update last year in 2022, which the industry was waiting for 20 years for that. It's not going to take that long for the next one going forward. But a recent success is actually a number of them. We have clients both here in Colorado, now with Colorado just being fully mapped. which is really big because now you can get some immediate information right when you go into the 4M platform. But Texas has been mapped for a few months, and in Texas we sat down with a client that had got a proposal from another company, and they didn't like it, and they called us in. They're like, "We're just not comfortable. What can you do? Can you provide a better approach? We don't want this lifeless proposal that has hundreds of thousands of dollars in it to map our utilities. There's different quality levels. What can you do for us? We're trying to design this water line in an 8-mile long easement." Well, that's a lot of money if you do full SUE in 8 miles. That's a lot of labor, a lot of days off the calendar, a lot of cost, a lot of man hours, a lot of equipment usage, a lot of travel, per diem, everything. So a recent success is us taking 4M as a partner and deciding that that client might just need a level D inventory of where all the utilities are first, and then they can make an assessment moving forward where in that 8-mile corridor they might have some pinch points where they're doing bore pits to bore that water line under the road to keep those Texas highways or CDOT roadways in service. And so we have found that with 4M, getting live real-time utility records data and then our own research of utilities, we still have to follow the standard, which is reaching out to the utilities and gathering records as well, but getting a big boost and having something to already within days go out and start field checking and walking through, we can provide that. And so that's a big part of where 4M has been really big into some recent successes with ServWest.
Thank you, Wes. Dennis, it's been said that data is the new oil or the new gold. You may have heard that statement, and it is abundant. Data is everywhere. How can we use AI, I should say, in utilities to optimize the usage of terabytes of data, and specifically maybe in that is collected annually, maybe in the power industry or the utility industry that your organization serves?
Yeah, so I kind of touched on that in the first question, but they're out there collecting data by the hour. And there's a lot of sensors on various transmission lines that can send real-time data. That's been discussed here earlier today, kind of the Internet of Things that also the utility companies are using. What we found is we'd send them a large data set, and then many times they couldn't even deal with the amount of data that we're giving them. I mean, we're giving them a point cloud with billions of data points, each attributed with various bits of metadata. So, the team required, if we're talking about humans, to analyze that data has got to be massive. And, obviously, time is of the essence with these things. So AI has the ability to shuffle through all these records similar to the underground records, that is just in mass and able to extrapolate what it needs and quickly move on to the next thing. It's really just a processing function. So what we're creating for the utilities to be able to manage this data and to understand it are these dashboards with Esri products and various other ways that we can make it easy for the decision makers to look at just the information that matters, but to know that the background, what has created this information, is robust and complete, so they can make an informed and timely decision and not make paralysis by analysis happen, which tends to happen when you've got a bunch of people involved and they're all saying, well, I looked at this and I looked at that. Well, the AI is going to be pretty pragmatic and give you just what it is because it's seen it all. So that's really where they're eliminating the turnaround time of analyzing this data.
Thank you, Dennis. Okay, we have about 4 minutes left. We know where we've been in the industry. We know where we are today. So my final question for each of you is, what would you like to see in the future from technology and the results or the impact that it can have on our industry? Basically, I'm asking you to look into the magic ball and predict the future. So it's wide open.
Yeah, which is where I love to live, right? So I mean, there's a lot of capabilities. I think, over the last, say, 6 months, we've seen a massive uptick in technology startups, especially. I think in construction, there's a lot of companies that are starting to branch into the venture capital space, which proves that technology is going to be a part of our business, whether we like it or not. So I think as we start looking at where AI is going to be in the future, I think it comes down to how collaborative and how can we communicate together to make better decisions for the world, right? And so if we look at some of these alternative procurement methods, CMGC, CMAR, progressive design build, those are the driving factor of how data can be managed in a variety of ways. And so AI is going to play a huge part in that. There's also a lot of other technologies that are going to become pretty prevalent. We talk about, Internet of Things and the IoT sensors, especially in transportation. We work with quite a few companies that we put IoT devices on our projects to identify where they are on a map, to deviate local traffic away from and/or identify where these work zones are. So as we become more involved with technology from an industry perspective, it's going to come down to how educated is our workforce, how prepared are we as an industry to move forward in that space. But I mean, the sky's the limit, literally. I think it was about a month ago they just announced that there is a vehicle that will fly. So,
Got it. So flying vehicles. Wes, same question.
Recent studies out of Penn State University said that for every dollar you spend in subsurface utility engineering, Sue, you can save up to $20 to $22 in project delays, construction delays, claims, contractor claims, maybe even damage, injury, loss of life. So that it's a huge, huge financial impact. My desire, my dream of where I'd like to see the industry go is, even if Sue is not required by law, kudos to Colorado for passing that bill back in 2018, now Colorado revised statute, that other states, that other agencies, and the whole infrastructure realm would see the value of Sue.
Great, thank you. And Dennis.
So I would just say in the next 5 years, I'd like to see AI get smarter. Machine learning takes time. It takes data input. What we see is there's still a major human element to produce point clouds to engineering specifications for the power utilities. It's not so much with vegetation management, but for the actual engineering drawings and models that they need, there's still a huge human element of QA/QC. The randomness of the errors caused by AI miscoding something is not, it's not as linear as mistakes made by a human. So it gets really hard to predict where they're going to be. So I would like to see that we're feeding, like was said earlier, we learn from our mistakes. Well, AI can definitely learn from its mistakes. So we need to feed the errors and things that AI missed back into the machine so it can learn and do better. And I believe in the next 5 years, we're going to see major impacts to the engineering modeling of extraction from LiDAR point clouds.
Great. That wraps up our time together. I want to thank our panelists. Thank you so much. And again, thank you to Ken and the team at InfraDay. Thank you.